Welcome to the Fee for Service Dentist Podcast. Today, our guest, Dr. Alex Cammack, Cammack. He's going to talk a little bit about his journey and where it led to him purchasing his father-in-law's practice with participation in 3 plans, and then what his strategy was as he dropped plan number 1, then plan number 2, and he still has plan number 3. And I kind of nudge him a little bit, but it's a good conversation, and he's a very thoughtful person. So he's thinking about a lot of things, and I think this will be a pretty good episode. And he can be reached at Dr. Alex Cammack, Dr. Dr. Alex Alex Cammack Cammack @gmail.com. As always, our podcast is brought to you by Kettenbach Dental, and they are excited to announce the first major advancement in fluoride varnish treatments, called Prophicel. It's no longer alcohol or resin-based. Instead, patients will want this treatment delivered with a muco-adhesive dimethicone gel. It leaves a smooth, silky, and lubricious feeling. No more grit. Contact Kettenbach today for more details. Call 877-532-2123 or visit kettenbachusa.com. If you like the episode, click like. Please share it with your friends and celebrate all things that are involved with this. The Fee for Service Facebook dentistry group, please join. You don't have to, but it's nice. It's a great community. If you don't like the episode, well, why don't you tell me about it? Or if you'd like to come on as a guest, tell me. We'd love to have you. sunnyspira@gmail.com. Thanks a lot, folks. Enjoy the show.
My name is Drew Burns, and I'm a part of a small group of dentists who believe something crazy. We believe that the standard of care is just not good enough. We demand the best of ourselves and the best for our patients. We believe that the best way? No, the only way to practice dentistry is on our own terms. If you ask the dental consultants or the corporate CEOs, they tell you that what we're doing isn't smart, that fee-for-service dentistry is dead, and that the golden age of dentistry is over. Yet, while others focus on profits first, we focus on the patient first. And yet our offices are some of the most profitable in the entire country because we invest in ourselves and we are doing things right. It's our name on the door and it's our reputation on the line. My name is Drew Burns and I am a fee-for-service dentist. This is the Fee-for-Service Dentist Podcast and these are our stories.
Welcome to the Fee for Service Dentist Podcast, Dr. Sunny Spira. Today, our guest is Dr. Alex Cammack. Did I pronounce it right?
Cammack, but I answered anything.
Cammack? All right. It's like Kmart, but it's with a C.
Yep.
All right, let me give you some background on Dr. Cammack. All right, he was born and raised in Longview, Texas. He attended Baylor University in Waco, undergrad degree in Health Science Studies. He went on to the University of Texas Health Science Center in San Antonio. See if he's a Spurs fan. He graduated cum laude with his doctorate degree in dental surgery in 2011. He also received the award for excellence for 2 years in a row with the AAID Senior Student Dental Award for Implant Dentistry, and also the Oral Maxillofacial Surgeon Senior Dental Student Award for Academic Achievement. Loves surgery. He's wanted to be a dentist since he was 14, always had a passion for meeting people, working with his hands. Loves implant dentistry and all surgical aspects in dentistry. He's an active member of the AGD, Texas Dental Association, and the ADA. He's committed to CE and self-improvement through coursework and association involvement so that he may provide exemplary service and care to each and every patient. Outside of the office, loves and supports his wife, Dr. Kathleen Cammack, who is a OBGYN at Texas Healthcare here in Fort Worth. They love and adore their son and daughters, Porter, Parker, and Louise. He loves being able to practice with his father-in-law and keeps it in the family. Also an avid, active outdoorsman, sports enthusiast, hiking, hunting, golfing, soccer, snow skiing, water skiing, and running. Yeah, you didn't miss too many sports there. It's pretty good. During football season, you can expect to find him following college football and cheering on the Baylor Bears. All right. They've had some good years.
Yeah.
Dr. Cammack and his family attend Christ Chapel Bible Church, and he strives to live every day by the verse, to whom much is given, much more is expected. And we're going to talk a little bit about when he purchased his father-in-law's dental practice in 2017. Really interesting stuff. So first of all, let's welcome Dr. Alex Cammack. How you doing today, man?
Wonderful. It's a great Friday.
It's a good day. It's Friday in our Catholic religion. We're in Lent. Easter's coming up shortly, so nothing but fish today.
That's right.
All right. So talk about it. 14 years old. Why was that the time you knew you wanted to be a dentist? What happened?
I'll give you the short story on that one. It was more of an accident than anything. Dad has 3 boys total. I'm the middle one, and I was in a health class. All my family's in finance of some sort, but I like math and science. I was in a health class. Teacher said, "Hey, write a a paper on any health industry, any doctor, whatever you want." I said, "Dad, what should I be when I grow up?" And he said, "Orthopedic surgeon." So that sounds great. And 3 boys, all broken bones. And so when it came time to write the paper, my older brother had just gotten his wisdom teeth out at the oral surgeon. And I go, "Yeah, I think that's what my dad said, oral surgeon." Yeah. And we had a family friend who was an oral surgeon in Longview. And so I went and shadowed him and just really enjoyed all the aspects of what he was doing. And so that's kind of the career path I started, going to dental school or going to college to be an oral surgeon, and then meeting the love of my life and realizing she had several years of residency ahead of her. Kind of said, let's maybe pause the oral surgery route and see what we can do in the general dentistry aspect and what surgery allows you to do in a general dentist practice. So kind of by accident in a weird way.
Well, pretty interesting. And you kind of pivoted off of the oral surgery?
I did, yep. So in school, I wanted to, but my wife and I met in college, and I guess I didn't really realize how much time and energy and work it took into after dental school, and knowing that my wife was in medical school at the time, and we were in different cities. We were long distance for about 5 years after college, and we would, who knows where we'd end up, and so I knew that she had to go into residency, and I thought, well, let's just give dentistry a run and not pursue residency and see what happens after that. But ended up loving the more comprehensive general side of it all, being able to pick and choose what I'd want to do.
So you graduated in 2011, and it says you purchased your father's practice in 2017. What happened in the in-between? What were you doing between those?
2011, went to San Antonio to Houston, where my wife was finishing up her last year of medical school. Had a job there for a year. Really enjoyed that. Got to learn from a great dentist down kind of in the Clear Lake area. And then my wife got her residency in Dallas at Bumsey. So we moved to Dallas, worked there for 4 years, and then moved to Fort Worth in the summer of 16, and then bought the practice in January 17.
Well, Dallas and Fort Worth, though, are pretty close, right?
They are. Yeah, it's a metroplex that is separated by nothing but a bunch of kind of in between cities.
All right. So when you were in Dallas 4 years, associateship, corporate, what were you doing?
I started with the corporate office. This is kind of actually one of my favorite stories. I won't name the corporate office that I was with. I really liked it. I liked the practice. I liked the locations they had in Dallas. But 3 months in, I got fired after he sold the practice or sold that location to an individual, and that individual had me fired by the head person. And he's basically, I was not producing enough. Everybody needs a night guard. Everybody needs deep cleanings. Everybody needs, their occlusal pits need to be OBLs instead of just occlusals. And I'm like, that's just not me. And so I wasn't producing. And that was a Sunday night. I got fired. And by Monday morning, I had a friend reach out, unbeknownst that I got fired, and offered up a position to me at a place where he was working. It was a private practice, a father and a son. And I mean, you talk about a God moment in my life. It was just glaring at me. Hey, this is where you need to be. So spent about 4 years there in that private practice with the father and the son. The dad retired shortly after I got there, and they had 2 practices, and was able to. It was really amazing. I basically was running my own practice, but as an associate. He wasn't there. I was the only dentist, and so taking over a man who was beloved in the town of Cedar Hill. You really have to learn to love and take on his patients and treat them the way that they were used to being treated by this man.
Were you talking long term? Was there any discussion about, hey, I could buy into this, or how about your buddy? Did he buy into it? What was the
No, he's a traveling dentist who did oral surgery. So he went on. There's a group out of Dallas that they do. That they've gone and done a GPR, and so they sedate and travel around and shuck wisdom teeth. But he was just kind of there part time doing that. And there was a conversation about 2 or 3 years in, and this man has 3 kids. 2 are currently in dental school, and 1 is in medical school. His wife is a pediatric dentist, and I mean, he's like a brother to me. An incredible family, and love them to death. And I had a conversation with him, and he was very open and honest. And he goes, Alex, I just don't know. I don't see anything right now, and I don't want to lead you on. Because at that point in time, when we were in Dallas, we weren't sure if we were going to leave Dallas and come back to Fort Worth, or if we were going to stay in Dallas. But it was not a deciding factor. My wife wanted to get back closer to home. She had a practice lined up and set up for her, and her family's here, and so it was really nice to be able to be closer to family. And we had 2 of our 3 kids in her residency, so I was like a single dad for a little while.
what's the distance between where you were in Dallas and where you're setting up in Fort Worth?
50 minutes probably. But anywhere to 45 to an hour and a half, depending on
So
traffic.
it could have worked. I mean, you could have been, it's not like you were working in, El Paso or something.
No, it wasn't terrible.
Okay. All right. So they were up front with you. So that's good. So talk about, what did you take from that now experience? Because all this stuff is building, right? So you got 6 years of what would the funniest thing would be like called real world experience, right? And
Yep.
now, you're going to go in and you're going to purchase your father-in-law's practice. But leading up to that, what were some of the things that you were starting to really sink your teeth into? Like, hey, I really want to learn about this, or the HR process, or, marketing, or just the various things that come with running a practice. Did you really start to do that then, or did you figure it out later? Boy, I should have done more of this.
Yeah, it was much later. It was I was much more focused honing on dental skills than I was with anything else. And if anything in my life, I'm the weakest in the HR, staff management, having the harder conversations. And to me, the marketing piece is more internal marketing. And I've done some external marketing campaigns, and they've some literally have panned to zero. You'll spend 20 or 30 grand and get nothing from it. But the internal marketing of just loving and caring for your patients is the biggest dividend that you can get from taking care of them. But the blessing there was, we had thought about moving to Fort Worth for her residency, and moving straight in with her dad. He had an associate at the time, and we weren't really sure. This wasn't a 3-doc practice; it was kind of a 2-doc, maybe a 1.5-doc type practice at the time. But we ended up deciding on Dallas based upon that residency there, and where she wanted to be. But it was so great for me because I was able to learn on my own and learn some different techniques, and then come in and bring in some different stuff. And about that time, about a year before I joined my father-in-law, his associate, kind of on a whim, we thought we were going to work together when he retired, but he went out and bought his own practice here in town. So it really worked out well. I was able to come in with some of my own knowledge and ways of fixing things. And the man I'd worked with beforehand, the guy who'd retired, was just a MacGyver of dentistry, and was really good at, piecemealing things together in an accurate and proper way, not just kind of patching stuff to patch it. But, not everybody's got several grand to spend to fix something. And so it was a really good practice to learn that you can do full mouth restorative, and at the same time you can patch left and right and kind of get somebody along until they're feeling better, or they pass away, or just trying to get different opinions, different aspects of how to treat people.
Okay. So when you left that practice, what year was that? Like, did you go right into the purchase of your father-in-law's practice, or would you?
June of 16 was when I left that practice, and then joined my father-in-law July of 16, and then spent the next 6 months of rather than buying it right off the bat, wanting to get to know the staff a little bit more, understand the process. He says that when you've got to be ready to sell, and he was ready to sell and kind of step away, and he stayed on for really just until this last November when he retired. So he stayed on for 7 years almost, and was an associate, and it was great. He worked 3 days, then 2.5, then 2, then 1, and 1.5, and so it was a great transition for that 6 months of the fall of 16 to kind of get used to the office and the staff and the patients before diving right into it and buying it.
Did his associate stick around too?
Nope. He left maybe a year and a half or so before I joined the practice, and that was another blessing as well. Great guy and a great dentist, but I think it worked out best that he had a practice here in Fort Worth that he wanted to buy.
Okay, so you guys you're in the same community then, right? Same professional community.
Yep. Still friends to this day, and his wife's a dentist as well here in Fort Worth. So great family.
Nothing like staying professional.
Yep, it is.
It's lacking nowadays, way too much.
Yes, it is.
All right, so you worked for 6 months. What was it like to negotiate with your father-in-law? What was that?
It was very easy. I told him I didn't want to negotiate. He has another daughter, and he wanted to make it fair. He did not want to give me a deal, and really the only deal he gave me was that he said, "Hey, I'm going to stay on and work," and he carried the note on the practice, which was really nice and amazing and kind. And so we went to a bank and said, "Hey, what would we pay, and what would the term be?" And he basically copied that. We got an appraisal from a company here in the Metroplex, and then my CPA company did their own appraisal, and they were within, I think, $25,000 or $50,000 of each other. And so I think we took the average of those two and moved on. And it was kind of odd. We were signing the papers at this desk here, and we're like, what's next? Do we shake hands? Like, what do we do here? And then we kind of shook hands and went and had dinner, and then it was good.
What was it like your first day of ownership in terms of your team?
Well, it was interesting because the CPA company I went with, Moss Luce and Womble, they've been amazing to me, and have really enjoyed their financial advisors and CPAs for mainly dental practices. And they switched to instead of bi-monthly on payroll, is bi-weekly. And so I said, "Hey, we're switching to this. You're getting 26 paychecks instead of 24." And you thought I told them they all got a pay cut. I was like, you're going to get paid more, but a little less. And it kind of it threw me for a loop that I realized that a lot of staff in the dental industry live paycheck to paycheck, and and they're paid well. It's not like they were fresh out of school. I mean, my office manager has been here 38 years now. Assistants have been here 21, and 17 years. And so we've got some new and fresh blood that have joined us. But it was kind of eye-opening to see how just one little tiny effect of that, really kind of sets people off. And then it takes a few months, and they realize, okay, this is not a big deal, and they got back on track. So
the change wasn't their hourly rate? It wasn't,
not at all. No, just going from 24 paychecks to 26 paychecks, but it just means that they got paid, 2 extra times, but each paycheck prior, or would be slightly less than what they were getting on the paycheck, but still the same rate. Actually, my first meeting with the staff was, I said everyone is getting $1 raise, so I raised everybody up $1 across the board as my first act as their new boss, and then also said, hey, oh, by the way, this is how we're getting paid. And it's like they'd never even heard that they were getting a raise. They just heard that they were going to get paid a little less each paycheck. But in the end, that was, and once I explained it, and after a few weeks, they were like, okay, I think we get this now, and it's been fine ever since. But it was just eye opening to me as my first few weeks of a practice owner.
I mean, if you're working a 40-hour week, you're getting paid for a 40-hour week. I don't understand.
Yeah, it was minimal changes in what their net paycheck was, but it was tough for some to understand that.
Yeah, I'm not sure I even get it myself. All right, so that's a pretty, but you know what? That's a pretty big differentiator right away for them to understand, because a lot of times in people in your shoes, what happens is the ownership changes, but in their minds, nothing changes, and they still go to the prior doc. They still have the prior doc as the boss, and the prior doctor also tends to have a hard time stepping back and saying, that's not, staying in their lane. That's no longer my job. You have to talk to Dr. K about that, Dr. Cammack, like you have to speak to him. I mean, but you've already established, I mean, you are signing their paycheck. So that does grab their attention right away. What other things did you find were like eye-opening things right away?
That was one of them. Was my father-in-law going from owner to no longer owner, and while he still has authority, and they still respected him for that, there were times that there were disagreements on stuff, and they go, well, Dr. Ross says this, and I'm like, yeah, but we just can't do that. Or patients who are getting they were getting a deal, and because of something that he did 20 years ago, or they were paying off yard work from 10 years ago, whatever it is. It's tough because sometimes you just have to honor that. That's just part of buying the practice, and it doesn't move the needle a whole lot. But there's still a lot of tough conversations the office manager had to say was, that's Dr. Cammack's practice now. It's not Dr. Ross's, and he sold it, so it's then you start like, well, is this guy all he cares about is money? And I'm like, no, but I do have quite a large note to my father-in-law, so yes, I do have to care about the economics of this, but no, that's not my driving factor in my practice. Was money. I mean, even to this date, while we have goals and that kind of stuff, I've yet to have a morning meeting that says, hey, we need to produce this today, and we need to sell this today, and we need to complete that crown today. So while yes, we were a for-profit business, it was hard because my father-in-law, as he got closer to retirement, he's financially stable, and he'd see Miss Jones, and Miss Jones is 85 and she needs X, Y, and Z done. He's, oh, we'll just do it for a couple $100. And I'm like, we just can't do that. And like, I love your heart and I love that, but we just can't give things away when I'm the one now paying a lot of the lab bills and all the costs associated with it. So I think that was one of the biggest things. And I know I'm going to get there when I'm 70. Maybe I'm not working when I'm 70, but you just kind of start giving things away because you've had a patient there for a long time, and it's going to be probably one of my kids or maybe one of their spouses having to deal with that in 30 years.
How old was your father-in-law when this happened, when this went down?
He is about to be 74, so he would have been 67.
Okay, so yeah, so clearly in a retirement age group area. I mean, at least chronologically, right?
Yeah, and he's he's from that generation of just, he's a worker bee. He put himself through. He grew up in a trailer park. Put himself through dental school and college, and put his sister through college, and so he's got pick yourself up by the bootstraps mentality. And if he's not working, it's hard on him. And so it's tough in retirement. And I think he's trying to find his way, but there's a lot of that generation that has to work, to get, to where they want to be.
With the term of your note, are you pretty much paying that down now? What time did you take? 10 years? How many did you do?
Yeah, 10 years on that. 10 years, 4.5% or so is really good at that time.
So you got about 3 years left then, right?
Yeah, we're getting there. And then there was an accounting mistake somewhere along the way that I was paying on a cone beam, reimbursing my father-in-law, and I just was an auto payment for a year and a half. And so I've overpaid him. I think it was like 30 or 40,000. We learned this a few months ago, and it's kind of nice. So we pay, that note had been paid off a couple of years prior, but my auto pay just kept going to him, and so we just turned around and added that as extra payment to to one of the notes. I think it was either the equipment note or the goodwill, but it's kind of nice. So now I've been paying a little extra and only have a couple of years left on it.
You mind talking just a teeny bit about that? Like when you purchase a practice, there's so many different variables and different categories of which you can, like you just said it right there, a couple of different notes that were separated, and some of them have major tax consequences, benefit for the purchaser, and maybe not for the seller, right? Do you mind sharing some of that? What you learned there?
And a lot of it was based upon his CPA. The valuation of the practice, is based on multiple different things. A lot of it just the collection side of it. But when they value it based upon the collections, they try to say, okay, well, you've got these many ops and this amount of equipment and this amount of supplies, so let's put a little bit towards that. And so I'd say a third of it of the total valuation went to a note to his corporation, and then the remainder went to him personally for the goodwill. And he's a C corp, so it was really kind of strange. And his CPAs had a pretty creative with the amount that I was paying him versus paying his corporation, and then also paying on AR as well. So I have 3 different notes to him: AR, goodwill, and equipment.
So the AR became yours as you purchased it, right?
Yep. And there are kind of 2 options there. Do we even purchase the AR?
Yep.
And we put together a formula on that and decided to go ahead and it was a lot easier to go ahead and purchase the AR and just cut it off straight at January 17, and everything that comes in then is mine.
Well, it allows for a little more continuity in the business administration. Now, what were some of the things that you wanted to change? Like what kind of business practices? Like you said, we haven't shared it with folks that you guys were participating with one insurance at that point in 2017.
We were 3 insurances at that point. We had MetLife,
Okay.
MetLife, Delta, and Cigna, who we were all contracted with. That is one of the initial things I wanted to change, knowing that their reimbursement schedules of MetLife and Delta. That was, a lot of listening to podcasts and reading books on what and how to do it. And it was scary when I pulled the trigger. And just like everybody else says, it's so much better in the long run. And at that point in time, we had a large company in Fort Worth called Lockheed Martin.
Yep. They're up here.
They're a massive company. And we have a lot of patients from them. They switched to Cigna, and their reimbursement rates went up a little bit. So after a few years of dropping those, I've kept Cigna. Cigna's not great right now with us. They have this Advantage plan and this Pro plan, and everything's really confusing. But I don't have any. I'm not planning on dropping Cigna anytime soon. But that was one of them. Was looking at the insurance side of it all. But really, I mean, I work harder now from an HR standpoint than I did when I bought the practice. I mean, it was humming. There was 6 employees. They've all been there a long time. I walked in, did dentistry, and everything, went off without a hitch. I'd leave early, and it was amazing. then once COVID hit, I mean, we blew up and have added, I think we've got 14 total employees now. So it's been, that's where I didn't foresee, obviously, anything happening with the pandemic, and the changes that came along with the practice just a few years ago. So it's really kind of rocked my world. I was very reactive to the growth, and was like just dying to have a warm body in the assistant chair or in hygiene. And so you hire really quickly, and then you worry about training later on, and so that creates a lot of confusion with the existing staff and the new staff coming in, and trying to create, just mesh the personalities was one of the hardest things.
So as a result of COVID, you guys blew up. You guys grew tremendously. What'd you say? You doubled your practice? What'd you say?
I'd say so. Maybe so. I would say, let's see. When I bought the practice in 2017, we have almost doubled collections in since 2017 to now. And I would say most of that growth, maybe 60% of that growth, is in the last few years. Some of that's just typical inflation of, just raising
Yeah,
fees.
but still, it's 100% growth. So did you change your physical plant? What did you do?
Not at all. My father-in-law owns the building. My wife and her practice, there's a large group of OBGYNs here in town. They have about 4,000 square feet in the building. I've got about 3,000 square feet. And then we have another private oil and gas company that's in that building. And we're actually in the process of buying the building from him. But it's kind of fun. We have, it's keeping it in the family. And when one of the tenants vacated, it left some room for me to expand and add on a couple of rooms and have a big break room and a big storage room. And
yeah, that's what I'm talking about. So when did you change your physical plant? So in other words, if you had in 2017 5 operatories, what's it look like now?
So we had 5 operatories in 2017, really tiny sterilization, 1 bathroom for all staff and patients, a break room that had a table for 2 people, and in let's see, 21 is when I started it, finished it in 22. So spring of 22, we now have 7 ops. Had to kill an op so we added 3 new ones, but netted 7 because I had to kill an op to create a much larger sterilization. So we had this kind of weird centralized operatory that is now a very large sterilization area. And then really just logistic things. We had boxes stacked in hallways, in bathrooms. And so now we have a big break room, big storage room, another bathroom, and a washer and dryer. And we're still, pretty crammed tight right now. I could probably add on another 2 ops and still use them.
So how many docs are in there then? There's yourself and who else?
And we have an associate. She joined us a couple of years ago as part-time. And then, with the mindset that she might not buy in, she might look for her own practice, and then really enjoyed working together. She's got a great mind. Patients and staff really like her. And so she's really meshed well, and she went full-time in May of last year.
Okay.
It's been good.
Okay. So you increased 2 more operatories on to 5. All right. So about a 40% growth in the number of operatories, and you had that kind of growth. Okay. What were some of the other things? Okay. You increased your sterilization area, and you feel you're kind of at capacity almost now with the 7?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we are. It is, she and I are both stacked, running 2 rooms. So it's 4 dental ops and 3 hygiene. We've got 2 full-time hygienists and 2 part-time. So we have 12 hygiene days, and they're booked out. We're probably booked out. I think our next cleaning opening is in the middle of June. And I don't, I really don't want to add another hygiene. It's great. I love it, but it takes up time in the middle of the day and in the middle of a procedure. Even a lot of it, even if they're not due for an exam and have no x-rays, there's always something. It's like, well, this thing is chipped, or hey, can you smooth this, or can you look at that?
Mhm.
Oh, by the way, I do have this pain. Can you come in and take a look at it? So there's a lot of those things that throw off the operatory side of the day.
Now you said when you started three plans you were in, and you dropped two of them. What was your strategy and how did you implement that?
It was kind of find out how many are on that, and see who is, see what number of patients we have. We wrote a letter just explaining what and why we were doing it, and would hand it to the patient and say, hey, we're going to honor your fees this time and at your next one, but after that, we will file your insurance for you. And then the letter explained all that about why we're doing it, that we're going to file for you.
Mm-hmm. What was their reimbursement? What was the number compared to your UCR?
Gosh, I mean, periodic exams were 50%. Pro fees were 50 or 60% of UCR. Crowns were maybe 40% less. And I mean, it was drastic. And it wasn't just that, it was dealing with them. You'd submit for some pretty basic procedures with intraoral photos and x-rays of the obvious stuff, and you get denied. And now I'm back in the office and dealing with it. So I still have to deal with that side of it all, but it almost makes it worth it financially because I'm charging UCR on it and not.
Well, I mean, if they're paying half of your fee and you lose half the patients, you end up creating capacity, right? And you don't lose a penny,
And you really don't lose as many as you think you will. We definitely had the ones who would leave and go find somebody, and then a year or two later come back to go, you know what, I think I'm just gonna stick here. I think they realized what service was, and that especially now since COVID hit, everything just skyrockets in cost. You realize if you're in a network office, how much you're having to make up on the backside of costs. And so you either have to see more patients or you have to do a lot more procedures. And the patients are really picking up on that and realizing that, maybe they don't want to be in a in-network office.
So you dropped the first one starting when, 2018, fairly soon thereafter. What was your plan?
Yep, I think it was in 18. And we just
dropped the worst reimbursement rate first.
MetLife was first. And I'm not even, I don't recall writing a letter for them. There were so few patients. I mean, maybe 70 to 100. And I don't even, I think we just said, hey, we're not taking that insurance anymore. We'll file it for you, but we're not contracted with them anymore. And didn't really catch a whole lot of flack from that. But Delta, we had quite a few patients on Delta when we did drop them. And that was the only one. I think that was several months later, maybe even a year later, that we dropped Delta. Wanted to see how MetLife went.
Okay. And how'd it go?
Great. I'd do it all over again.
Okay. So that gets you the momentum running, and then you dropped the second one about when?
Probably late 18, early 19.
Okay.
I think it was early 19. I think we did it at the start of a year.
All right. So you drop that, and you guys ultimately are cooking. And if you're at capacity, why not consider dropping the third one now?
Yeah, and that's
deal with how it all plays out when you're at it. Kind of like it could solve some of your space issues.
Yep.
And increase your revenue same time.
It's a conversation that I'm currently having with my office manager now and our associate. It's tough, and probably the reason I'm not going to do it just yet is more not so much logistics, but from a just from an overall look standpoint. We go, oh hey, that's weird. The the old guy, he retires, and the office manager, she retires, and all of a sudden you're dropping these insurances. Well, that's not a good look for you, buddy. Like, that's the conversation I play in my head. Whether or not patients will actually say that, I don't know. But we've got a lot of changes happening with him retiring, with my office manager retiring, hiring some new staff here in the next few weeks, replacing some front desk, and uh, getting a new assistant and adding on. And there's a lot of changes, and it's just one less thing I don't want to deal with right now. So I kind of want to, because we have a lot of patients on Cigna, so I'm real hesitant, just because I don't want to have to deal with the number of conversations that I'm going to have with long-term patients. And I'm really waiting on some of the Lockheed patients. A lot of them in the next year or two are probably going to retire anyways. So as that happens, that'll probably make my conversations less and a little easier.
Okay, well, I have an opinion on that, but I'll be quiet.
I'm open to them. Maybe it's not a podcast time to talk about it, but yes, I'm at that point where I don't have a piece about what my decision is, and so I am open to any and all ideas on that.
Well, to me, it just makes sense regardless. I mean, change is change, right? So this might be the perfect opportunity, because the reason you did it with the others is sort of the reason you're doing it for this. It's about them having the ability to choose what they want, not having an administrator who has no interest other than cheap for what they're going to, have done dentistry wise. It's just the same conversations that you have prior. It's the same conversation you're going to have now, and it's almost like if you have a certain number of people who've been through it, it just seems like this would be the next step naturally for them too, because they've already had these conversations, like it just seems to be the next logical step for you. And given the situation that you have, maybe if you drop 20 or 30% of those patients, you're still going to probably end up coming out way ahead, assuming that you're taking some hits on those fees. I would imagine you are. Have you looked at the fee schedules?
I have. It's a significant bump.
And it's not cheap to do what we do. I mean, it's, as well as I do, the cost of living has gone way up, and the cost of doing business has really gone up. So, it's just, you can only squeeze that orange so far,
Yep. And that's really what it is. It's staff costs are going up, and staff are an asset to me, so I want to pay them well. It's nice to have staff stick around and take care of you and take care of them, but patients really enjoy seeing the same faces over and over and over again.
Well, continuity care, there's nothing like it. It's not happening in medicine very often.
Yeah, no, it's really difficult. And same thing my wife is experiencing is a lot of just staffing issues and turnovers, and lots of anger and emotions. It's not easy in the OB-GYN practice.
Yep. And a lot of the decisions are made by the insurance companies. No, you're not staying overnight. No, this is not being done. No, you can't use this medication. We're going to use this one. Oh, okay. You have a knee problem. We got to get an x-ray first. Why? Well, because that's the standard of care based on the insurance company.
Oh yeah. Oh, they have to fight insurance way more than we do. But
right.
I have a feeling we're not far off from that.
Yeah, but the insurance is determining the cheapest possible course of work. It's the same thing. Like if you have a house claim, right? Something happens at your house and you got to file a claim. Trust me, they're not interested in giving you what it's going to cost to fix it. And even though that's what your policy says, Oh, and by the way, we also have this company that we work with. They'll do the reconstruction for you at pennies on a dollar. Yeah. Like I want it like it is now. I want it returned to this type of condition. And when you're paying peanuts, I don't want monkeys. So I would rather stick to what we need to have done properly. I went through this a few years ago at one of at our home, and it was incredible the amount of work my wife had to put into getting basically what the insurance said they would pay, and they started out at 1/3 the price, 1/3. and that's where they were staying. And oh, by the way, we have this company that's subcontracted through our. I was like, what? And then well, give me some names of some customers that they've, we tell the customers, and they were like, one was like, well, we're never there, and that was great. They fixed our closet. We're like, closet? This is going to be 2 bathrooms, a kitchen, da 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 da. It's not a closet that they have to do. Oh, I probably wouldn't use them for that. You know what I mean? Like, you just check on it. But oh, by the way, they're cheaper. So it's an interesting situation. You're in a great spot in that you've grown that practice so nicely to the point where you don't want to do a lot of hygiene checks because you're busy, right? So why not just bite the bullet and do it? But that's you got to come to that position because you obviously did with the other two. You were right. Your mindset was there, which I think is step one. Mindset. Gonna do this, and then 2, you don't turn back after you start, and then because people sense that, like if you're hesitant, and like right now, if you were to explain it to a patient, I don't think you would be convincing because I don't feel it in your bones.
No, you're exactly right, and patients pick up on that stuff.
Yeah, way more than what you say. It's how you say it, right? You know that patient, right? That gets you up and they stand you up and they get you right in the corner and you're on your heels and it's like, and they do it, and you got to be like, yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you asked that. Boom.
Those are the fun ones. Those are the ones that keep you up at night.
So are you looking at changing? Are you looking at expanding your facility? Like, are you looking at adding more rooms or what are you looking
Possibly, not anytime soon. There's no space in our building, and we're not looking at moving locations anytime soon. The oil and gas company that's back there, they've got I think 3 more years on their lease, but it's a private office for them, and I don't see them going anywhere anytime soon. So I think before I expand, would love to drop Cigna and see what that does to the flow of the practice before having to spend more energy and time and money on expanding.
Okay. All right. So a couple of final thoughts now. In closing, give me a few thoughts about what you did and how you did it. What did you learn? And what would you like to share with others who are thinking about it?
A big, kind of a big turning point for me was realizing that it's not just dentistry, that we're in a service industry. And I read Unreasonable Hospitality. And it was
what was that? You read what?
Unreasonable Hospitality.
Okay.
Written by a guy who took 11 Madison Park to the #1 restaurant in the world. And it's about, while yes, he's running a restaurant, it's not just about the restaurant. It's about how do you take care of your staff and how do you take care of your patrons. He mentions dentists very briefly in there, but in our world and what I've enjoyed about this podcast and listening to it over the last couple of years is trying to find ways to separate yourself from from the dentist in your area and why am I different. While I think my skills may be great, if they don't like my front desk or they don't like the way I talk to them or they don't like the little things that we do, then I'm not going to retain that patient. And I've learned that there is a balance though. I'm a people pleaser and I want people to like me, but I have to also realize that I can't please everybody. And that I can't.
So how do you deal with that? Because that is the most common thing in dentistry.
Yep.
We're all, I'm great. I'll take care. I can help you with your pain. You like me. I like you, blah, blah, blah. But the moment someone says something that might be not controversial or confrontational, but that might be a differing thing, we take it personally, right? How do you handle that? What do you
that's an hour-long conversation. The short side of that is that kind of a real big spiritual awakening for me in the last year and a half, where I've grown up in the church and I've gone to church, and yes, I believe this and that, yada yada yada. I could answer every single question, but I have a peace and a love that doesn't make sense, where I mourn with people who mourn and I rejoice with people who rejoice. When I wasn't feeling that a year and a half ago, and there's a long story on how I got to that point, but it's made me free and understand that that my creator loves me for who I am, and not that I don't have to please everybody. And one of my favorite sayings that someone has told me is that I have an audience of one. And that one is my creator. I don't need to please the 50 people who walk through our door a day, or my friends down the street. And while, yes, I need to have a loving and amazing relationship with my wife and my children, they're still not, my judge. So I think coming to that realization has made me a better boss and a better dentist, to say, hey, I'm going to decide and do what I feel like is necessary. And if you don't like it, that's okay. Like, we don't have to agree on everything. And that was a hard realization for me to get to.
Okay, how about lastly, what about just in terms of owning and running your own business? What are one or two things that either you've picked up or that you recommend, either skills or training, or what are some of the things? Because it's way different. I don't care what anybody's, when you start as an employee, now as an owner, when you put that other hat on, things are different. So what are some of the things that you picked up in terms of the business?
Yep. As dentists, I think we're all, for the most part, type A, particular, can be micromanagers, just from the world we live in, with working in really small, tiny environments. I had a patient who worked at Lockheed, and it was high up with them. Picking his brain, and he said, you need to find what you're good at and do those things, and find what you're not good at and pay people to do that. And I think that's where the strengths I have with there are things in dentistry that I'm not great at, and I refer those out, or I don't test myself in. And there are things that I test myself in and try to get better at. So it's identifying those, just to for my craft, but also being a small business owner, is hiring the right financial advisors and the right people from a CPA standpoint. And for me, allowing my staff, having patience with them, has been probably the biggest thing for me, is understanding that my staff is going to screw up. They're not going to file this correctly, or they're not going to say this thing to the patient, or they're not going to pick up, or, they're not going to set up this, or not going to send that off, or whatever it may be. That they're human, and they're going to mess up. And I think when they've realized that they get grace in those moments, and that I understand that their intentions are pure, and that everyone's here just to try to love and serve our patients. I think my biggest thing I've picked up in the last couple of years is just learning to walk throughout the day with a sense of just patience with my patients and with my staff. It's changed how I treat staff and patients, and it's changed how I then come home. I'm not all wound up and frustrated when I get home with my wife and kids over something silly that happened throughout the day.
Have you learned the difference between abdicate and delegate?
Ooh, kind of. I'm still in the midst of learning what that truly means for me. But it's something that's not super fresh on that I'm really good at either.
I look back and I think that my dad would share that with me. That's not something you can abdicate. That's something you delegate. And it was a very interesting thing, because I never even heard the word. I didn't know what the hell abdicate meant, until I had to kind of look it up. But I understood the gist of it. It's like, you can't shirk that. That's still your responsibility, although you can delegate it. And delegate it means you're going to pass it on to someone to do, but you need them to report to you. You need to check, you need inspection and a few other things, right? And it was very helpful for me, but it was a hard thing. I think it wasn't a natural thing for me to learn that. So I just, listening to you, I'm thinking back to myself. Where was I at when I was 5 or 6 years into ownership? That was 1997 for me. I was 6 years in ownership, et cetera. So a little walk down memory lane for me.
That's
all
great.
right. Any last thoughts? Anything you'd like to share?
No, I think just thanks to y'all for continually doing this podcast. I think it helps people more than you know, and it creates a sense of community where we can learn from each other. And while someone might be listening to this and go, oh, well, that's cool, that's neat, I've never really thought about this or that. A lot of it really is just maybe just picking up one thing that that one of us has said, and that while we may not listen to an hour of this, maybe 30 seconds, someone goes, oh man, that's gonna change, or I'm gonna think about that throughout the week. And so I appreciate y'all being willing to put this all together and broaden our community and kind of bring people across the nation together on this.
Well, I thank you very much for that nice comment and compliment. And it doesn't happen without people like yourself. So, thank you for being willing to, sort of expose parts of your anatomy during a conversation, but also share, and so not everybody has to make the same mistakes, right? All right. So, Alex, your contact, I don't know if I have it in your thing. How would you like people to reach out to get in touch with you?
Yeah, I think dralexcammack@gmail.com. That's probably the easiest one. DRALEXCAMM as in Mary, ACK @gmail. It's probably the easiest way.
Oh, you're like me. You don't make it complicated. I don't have the DR. I just have Sunny Spirit @gmail. So
I know I try to separate the personal and business side of the Gmail, even though it all.
I should probably do that, because now I'm starting to get some crazy spam things. But anyway, all right. Last question. Got to ask you. Okay, you probably heard this before, but gonna ask you, if you could go back in time anywhere, time, place, where would you go?
I'm gonna go with Rome in roughly 2,000 years ago. I think that would be a fascinating place of history and knowledge and growth, excitement, sports and games. I think there's a lot going on at that time, 2,000 years ago.
Have you ever been to Rome?
I have. Yep.
It's unbelievable, isn't it?
I love it. We've traveled a lot with our kids. We've taken them, a lot of places in Europe, and really enjoy the history over there. It's mind blowing to see what was happening 2,000 years ago, and where I'm sitting right now, 150 years ago, we were in log cabins and tents. It's really fascinating.
And the roads you're walking on were built 2,000 years ago, something like that. It's really hard to grasp when you really start thinking about it. It's one of my favorite places on earth too. Same reason. All right, my friend. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you. And the show should be on fairly soon. So thank you.
Appreciate your time.
You got it. Thanks.
All right. Have a good day.
You too.
Thanks for listening to the Fee for Service Dentist Podcast. If you would like to share your fee for service story, please fill out our contact form at ffsdentistry.com. Also, be sure to join our Fee for Service Dentistry Facebook group. For help starting your dental membership plan, visit dentalmembershipdirect.com and membershipmastercourse.com. Finally, for help with in-house financing, visit dentalfinancingdirect.com. And don't forget, your story is what you make of it. This is your name on the door and your reputation on the line. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time.
This has been a Rogue Media Network